प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः. Pranams everyone. We are in chapter 4, Sloka number 28. Sri Bhagavan uvacha Dravyayajñastapo yajñaha yogayajñastatha pare Svādhyāya Jñāna yajñascha yatayas samshitavrataha. So Bhagavan is giving the list of all sadhanas here, and he is giving the sadhanas as yajñas. And this started from Sloka number 25 onwards. 25, Bhagavan gave the yajña, the deva yajña itself as one of the sadhanas. Then he talked about Brahma-Jnana yajña within the same Sloka. Then in Sloka number 26, Bhagavan talked about damah as a sadhana or as an yajña, Indriya Nigraha or damah. And in the second line he talked about Vishaya Grahana yajñaha. So how to, even experiencing a sensory object can be an yajña. Then in 27, Bhagavan talked about he dedicated one full sloka for shamaha, mental discipline. And then now in this sloka 28, Bhagavan is giving 5 sadhanas or 5 yajñas. The first one we saw as Dravya Yajña or Dāna. We saw that in the last class. And then the second one he gave within this sloka is Tapo Yajñaha, Tapas as an yajña. So we have seen so far. Then the third one that he is talking about here is yogayajña. Yogayajña, where we talk about aṣṭāṅga yoga as a sadhana. Patañjali's aṣṭāṅga yoga as a sadhana. We know that there are 8 limbs of yoga, aṣṭāṅga yoga. As I said, this yoga, this aṣṭāṅga yoga and the process of meditation is elaborately discussed in 6th chapter, which is known as Dhyāna yoga. Here Bhagavan talks, we'll see that briefly. Bhagavan just mentions yogayajña. Yogayajña here means the aṣṭāṅga yoga. Aṣṭāṅga yoga consists of 8 limbs: yamaha, niyamaha, then we have asana, Prāṇāyāma, pratyāhāra, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. The 8 limbs. So what is yamaha? Yamaha means actions to avoid. Niyama means things to follow, actions to follow. Yamaha means actions to avoid. So restraints, what are the restraints? And here we primarily talk about social ethics. So the 5 yamaha are ahimsa. Ahimsa is not to hurt anyone. See, it's all negative. Yamaha is all restraints. So when we say ahimsa, we say not to hurt anybody. Then we have satyam. Satyam means not to lie. Satyam does not mean always telling the truth. Satyam means is not to lie. We had discussed elaborately about Satyam in chapter 13 when we did the Slokas. Then aṣṭāyam. Aṣṭāyam means not to steal. Not to steal from anyone. Not to take anything which does not belong to self, does not belong to us, is aṣṭāya. Then brahmacharyam. Brahmacharyam is abstinence. Having a discipline on brahmacharyam is abstinence. Having a discipline on with regards to how we deal with other sex is brahmacharyam. Then aparigraham. Aparigraham is not to be greedy, not to hoard things. Those are the 5 yamaha. Then niyamaha means actions to follow, something that must be done. Those 5 things are saucham. Saucham means purity. Again, we had seen this earlier. Purity, there are 3 levels of purity: external purity, and the purity with regards to the knowledge. So that is saucham. Then the second important thing is santosham. Santosham here means contentment. Being contented with what we have, what we get in life is santosham, contentment. Then the third one is tapas. Tapas is austerity, willfully going through some bit of pain is tapas. Then the other one is Svādhyāya. Svādhyāyam is self-study. Bhagavan has already called tapas as one yajña. He is going to call Svādhyāya as another yajña also. But this also forms part of niyama, self-study. Then finally the 5th one is Ishvara Pranidhana. Ishvara Pranidhana means surrender to Ishvara. So these are the 5 niyamas. Then asana. So yama we finished, niyama we finished. Then asana. Asana is with regards to the posture. How do one need to sit? I mean, with the spinal cord erect, relaxed position, with the right mudra, chin mudra, that kind of posture is talked about as the 3rd limb. Then the 4th one is Prāṇāyāma. Prāṇāyāma means mindful breathing. When we talk about breathing, again, this Prāṇāyāma, this breathing, we'll talk about it in detail in the next chapter. In the next sloka itself. Prāṇāyāma, we will talk about, Bhagavan talks about Prāṇāyāma as one yajña. So we'll see it in the next sloka. Then pratyāhāra. Pratyāhāra means sensory discipline. Again, it's nothing but damah. Damah in aṣṭāṅga yoga is called as pratyāhāra. To make to turn inward, basically to make sure that the sense objects do not focus on things outward, is pratyāhāra. Then dharana. Dharana is concentration. Again, in Vedantic terms, if you want to call dharana, it's shamaha. Pratyāhāra is damah, dharana is shamaha, mind control, concentration, mental discipline. Then 7th one is Jnāna. Jnāna means meditation. Once the mind has been controlled, first we will have to ensure that the sense organs and the mind turn inward through pratyāhāra. Then as dharana, the mind is now being controlled, disciplined. Then we say dhyana, which means to focus, ask the mind to follow one task repeatedly. That's called as dhyana. Then finally is samadhi. What is samadhi? Samadhi is actually the benefit of dhyana. Once we keep the mind without any vikshepa, without any disturbance, if the mind is calm, then the benefit of that dhyana is the calm mind, the mind without a vikshepa, some peacefulness in the mind, that is called as samadhi. So these 8 limbs of yoga has been given by Patañjali. This has been called out by Bhagavan as one yoga, as one yajña. So dravya yajña, tapo yajña, yoga yajña. Yoga yajñas tata apare, some people. Now second line, Svādhyāya Jñāna yajñascha. So Svādhyāya Jnana yajñascha means 2 yajñas are given, Svādhyāya yajña and Jnana yajña. Svādhyāya yajña, see, whatever grantha we want to study, whatever text we want to study, in those days, the first thing that was asked from the student was to memorize that text. Even before you understand the meaning, the first thing that the teacher would say is for the students to memorize the text. That's the sampradaya. That's our culture. That's how we things were taught in our culture. So first is Shabda Grahanam. Even before you got the meaning, even before the Artha Grahanam, Shabda Grahanam was given first preference or prominence. So if somebody wanted to study, for that matter, Sanskrit grammar, for example, they would have to memorize those 4,000 Panini sutras first. So they would have to first completely memorize that. So the initial first few months of the study would be focused on being able to memorize that. That's why even today when you see a lot of this, our Purohits or Shastrigals as we call it in South, when they go for any of the events, whether they are conducting an yajña, homa at a home or conducting a marriage ceremony or coming for any other Veda chanting, they would be able to chant it without seeing their books. They would have memorized it. So in Paఠశాlas today also, focus is given to memorize them. So only after memorizing them, the students will be able to grasp the meaning or will be given the time to actually understand the meaning. Or they can enter the class for learning the meanings. Even in those days, for that matter, even for Vedānta classes, Upanishads, where all the students were asked to memorize the Upanishads mantras and then only be able to understand the meaning. But today, these days, we don't do that. Even the teacher does not know, does not memorize them. So the reason why the Sampradaya was like that before, it's important to note why the Sampradaya was meant or kept in a manner that first you have to memorize, then only you will be able to understand the meaning. See, what happens is when you are listening to a word, when you are trying to understand the word, when you know the word already, then to remember the word when the meaning gives is much more easier. So first, if you actually you know the word, then you know the meaning, then when you actually chant, you are able to understand. First of all, you are able to understand the meaning, and therefore when we chant, we are able to understand and appreciate the chant better. But why is that the mind is capable of understanding the meaning better when we have already memorized the text, and why is that the mind is not able to understand the meaning better when we have not memorized? There's a problem with our mind. Our mind is capable of absorbing only one thing at a time. So suppose we talk about 10 different points in the class, and say what happens is we are talking about 10 different things one after the other, and the student has got a confusion on one of the points with the 10 points that have been discussed. What happens is, once that confusion starts, at that point the student stops understanding the rest of it. The mind gets stuck there. The class is over for him. So he will not be able to progress much on the remaining points that the teacher discusses, because the mind is already stuck there. And that is why one of the reasons why we also say, when all these classes that we take, it is not enough that you listen to it only once. These classes would have to be repeatedly listened, because at certain points the mind would have actually been able to, if we are discussing about 10 points, the mind would have been able to grasp only 3 or 4 of them. The next time when we listen to them, the remaining 3 or another 3 or 4 would probably be able to assimilate. Then when we listen again for the third time, maybe there will be another 3 or 4 points, new points that come together. So that's why every time we listen, we probably be understanding something new. So here, coming back to this, in the class when we actually give the word, which itself is new. So every Sanskritam word is probably new to us, or most of the Sanskritam words are new to us because we are not using it colloquially. So now what we have to have, we need to know the word and then the meaning. So there are two things that needs to be learnt and understood. First the word itself, then the meaning. Remember, the mind is capable of taking only one. If the word is already known, suppose for example we say yogayajña, then this is something we know. Yoga we know, yajña we know, so it's easy to understand this. But there are certain words that we will have heard it for the first time, and that time the mind will be focused on understanding or listening to the word itself. The mind will be spending its time to grasp that word itself. So the meaning would not go into the mind as much as for a word that we already know. So if you want to know the text deeply, then our culture, our sampradaya is such that first do the shabda grahanam, then you come to artha grahanam. So here when we say Svādhyāya, Svādhyāya here means shabda grahanam, memorizing these śāstras. So here when Bhagavan says Svādhyāyam, it is about memorizing the text. As far as Vedānta is concerned, it is not that we need to memorize, or for the purpose of moksha we can say. It is not that we need to memorize the entire Upanishads and entire Bhagavad Gita and all those things. If you are able to memorize, well and good. It is not going to go waste. But memorizing some slokas are important. And the meaning of those slokas are more important than the text itself. Memorizing the slokas also helps us in one other manner, which is actually to do nididhyāsanam. When we have already got the meaning, when we want to repeatedly bring back the meaning in our mind, then for the sake of nididhyāsanam, memorized sloka helps us better. And again, there is no need to have any guilt feeling when not able to memorize the entire text. But certain slokas are important, and especially the meaning of those slokas are very important. Here Bhagavan, when he says Svādhyāya yajña, he talks about shabda grahanam, memorizing the text. Now next yajña, Svādhyāya Jñāna yajñascha. Now Jnana yajña here means the artha grahanam. So Svādhyāya yajña is shabda grahanam, Jnana yajña here means artha grahanam. So vichara that we do on the text is Jnana yajña. And typically whenever we say we will do a vichara, what typically happens here is, if you want to get the entire, or if you want to do a proper vichara, a deep analysis, then one must study Mīmāṁsā, Vyākaraṇa, Tarka. All these are different śāstras. Mīmāṁsā is the ability to analysis text, and then Vyākaraṇa is grammar, Tarka is logic. Only then we will be able to do a proper vichara. So knowing this is also called as Jnana yajña. So when we want to do artha grahana, we have to understand the underlying subjects of logic, grammar and others. Then there are also Vedāntas. There are 6 Vedāntas, limbs of Veda, as we call it, as Siksha, Chandas, Vyākaraṇa, Nirukta, Jyotisha and Kalpa. Shiksha means the phonetics. Phonetics is Shiksha. Vyākaraṇa we know grammar. Then Chandas. Chandas is meter. There are different meters in way the mantra is chanted. One particular chandas is Gayatri Chandas. There are many other chandas. So meter. Then Nirukta. Nirukta is etymology, the root of the word. Then Kalpa talks about all the rituals. And then finally Jyotisha, we know Jyotisha is astronomy. So these are Veda Angas. So again, to have better understanding of every word, to know these Veda Angas also helps. Because if you know the etymology, if you know the phonetics, if you know the grammar, if you understand the meter, obviously you will be able to understand the sloka also, or the mantra better. So that is known as Jnana. So I said Mīmāṁsā, Vyākaraṇa and Tarka. Now when we do our vichara, we are bringing through the sampradaya, the gurus have given us certain points with regards to Mīmāṁsā. Mīmāṁsā means critical investigation. It's basically a critical investigation. Vichara means contemplation. So to do a contemplation, we do some critical investigation, we bring in the grammar, we try to bring in logic to understand things better. So Jnana-Yajña here means to understand. So hear and understand. So in other words, we can say śravaṇam and mananam. Śravaṇam is listening, mananam is reflection. So Jnana-Yajña means Shabda Grahanam we can say, or we can say śravaṇam and mananam. So we have seen so far Dravya-Yajña, Tapo-Yajña, Yoga-Yajña, Svādhyāya and Jnana-Yajña. So 5 yajñas we see. So already we have seen 5 yajñas before, now total of 10 so far. So Bhagavan then completes this sloka, Yataya samshita vrataha. Vrataha. Yataya samshita vrataha. Yatayaha means yatis. Yatis means seekers, sadhakas. So who performs these sadhanas? Who performs these yajñas? Yatis, sadhakas. Seekers perform these sadhanas. Now, are these sadhanas easy to perform? Bhagavan says no. So Bhagavan says they perform this because of samshita vrataha. Samshita vrataha means firm resolve, with a strong will. So they are people of firm resolve. Any sadhana for that matter, it is easy to start. Easy to start any sadhana. The difficulty is to stay in that path. These people, they are adamant on staying on the path. We are also adamant, but for different matters, different things. We are adamant and we take pride in being adamant also. Once I make my decision, I will not change it for anybody. We will say it as if it's actually a virtue. Here, these people are also adamant, but they are adamant to ensure that they continue to perform the sadhanas. So if only we are able to, be stubborn in following these sadhanas also, it will be done. It will be better. So how do we ensure that we stay in that path? We do not start and then stop. Again, this we have discussed when we had taken up chapter 13 and chapter 16 also. Quickly, if we want to go through, first of all, when we take a sadhana, when we take a vrata or undergo it, tapas, we want to do it, make sure, take a goal that can be achieved. Do not have a high expectations at the start itself. Say for example, but slowly progress towards the final goal. The final goal, the first step need not be the final goal. Don't try to take a giant leap of things. Suppose if you want to wake up say we've been waking up at 7 o'clock, and then from tomorrow, or I say, okay, I should start waking up at 4:30 in the morning. Then from 7, if you try to wake up the next day at 4:30, you will be able to keep alarm, wake up at 4:30. 2 days, 3 days it will be working, but then the 4th day we'll give up. Because we will feel tired by the end of the day or in the middle of the day, and then we will say that it doesn't work, we'll give that up. And what happens is the failure will disappoint us. Next time we will not even try to actually get into that sadhana. It will discourage us. So what happens is, take some small steps. Okay, I want to go to, the end goal is 4:30. So from 7 I will actually move it to 6:30. So 6:30 every day for the next 15 days, 20 days. Then from 6:30 slowly move it to 6 o'clock, and then so on and so forth. So every time when we actually achieve something, what happens also, it gives us some positive encouragement. It gives us confidence in ourselves that we are able to do this. So whenever we are trying to follow any vrata or sadhana, take small steps, don't take giant leaps. So here Bhagavan says, these people have that firm resolve. Samshitam vrataha. So the meaning of this sloka is apare yatayaha. So people, the seekers, other seekers, samshita vrataha, they are seekers of firm resolve. They are practitioners of dravya yajña, tapo yajña, yogayajña, tata svādhyāya yajñascha. So they are practitioners of charity as an yajña. They perform austerity as an yajña, or they perform yoga as a yajña, and they also follow the repetition and study of śāstras or scriptures as an yajña, recitation. So that is sloka number 28. Now we will go to sloka number 29. Apane juhvati pranam prane panam tatha pare prana panagati rudva prāṇāyāma parāyanāha. Apane juhvati pranam prane panam tatha pare prana panagati rudva prāṇāyāma parāyanāha. So here Bhagavan talks about Prāṇāyāma. We saw that Prāṇāyāma, breath control, that as a sadhana or that as a yajña. And only this sadhana is talked about in this sloka. Again, we saw in the last sloka, Prāṇāyāma is part of the aṣṭāṅga yoga, but Bhagavan is giving it separately. Now pranaha means breath. The air blown through the nostrils, the air outside is called as vayu. The air outside is called as vayu. If the same vayu, it goes through our nostrils, it is called as pranaha. Pranaha means the air that goes through the nostrils. Prāṇāyāma. So āyāma means discipline, stopping, controlling. So disciplining the air that goes through the nostrils, controlling the air that goes through the nostrils is known as Prāṇāyāma, and it is a sadhana. When we talk about our body, when we want to understand our body, there are various ways to understand our body. One of the ways to understand our body is the Panchakosha Vivek. We take this 5 sheaths to understand this body. We say Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manonmaya Kosha, Vijñānamaya Kosha, Ānandamaya Kosha. That is one way to understand the body. So the Annamaya Kosha is nothing but the physical body, the Sthula Shariram. The Pranamaya Kosha talks about the Pranaha. Of course, the Manomaya Kosha is mind, Vijñānamaya Kosha is the intellect mainly, Then Anandamaya Kosha is the underlying Karana Shariram. But if you look at it, Pranamaya Kosha is in between Annamaya Kosha and Manonmaya Kosha. So the Pranan is between the physical body and the subtle mind. So in that sense, what happens is, if we control the prana, if we control the breath, both the physical body as well as the mind can be controlled. That's why if a person is angry or agitated, it is evident in the prana. The breath will be hot and it will be frequent. And in the same manner, if the physical body is weak, then also it is evident in the prana. In their breath, we will be able to identify whether they are weak. So there is a connection between, so when we say agitation, it is a mental issue. It's a mind-related issue. That is also evident through prana. If the physical body is weak, that is at the Annamaya Kosha level, that is also evident through prana. So there is a connection between the mind and the prana and the physical body and the prana. So Pranamaya Sadhana, it can be used to control both the mind as well as the physical body. A lot of people these days, Pranāyāma is very popular, and Pranāyāma, they use it for physical health. Only physical health, in fact. It is okay. But here, Bhagavan is talking about Pranāyāma as a sadhana for controlling the mind. And Pranāyāma, we'll have to be careful with regards to Pranāyāma. We should take guidance from a proper guru to learn it properly. If we do not do it properly, the Pranāyāma, it can be counterproductive. It can be counterproductive to body as well as the mind. If it is not done properly, there could be a problem in our sleep patterns, there could be a problem in the hunger pangs and all those things. So there is a certain method to follow, so it's better to consult a proper guru for this. For example, it should not be performed at odd times. Any time should not be doing pranayama, or it should not be done with a full stomach, or it should not be done when you don't have a proper sleep. When you have not had a proper sleep, you shouldn't do that. So there are certain times that only that we should be done, certain restrictions and certain methods to follow. In fact, even if you look at Patanjali's aṣṭāṅga yoga, pranayama comes at the fourth. It is not one of the first things. Patanjali yoga says first yama, things that have to be avoided, first to avoid that. Only then you cannot come and sit for meditation and go into a samadhi state unless you do the other 7 first. And for the 7th one, you will have to do the 6 first. Similarly, for doing the 4th pranayama, one has to do the first 3 properly. So yama has to be followed, which means those that are to be avoided have to be avoided first. Then niyama, then asana, then only we can come to pranayama. Pranayama is about slowly taking the breath inside, holding the breath for some time, and then releasing it slowly. So there are 3 parts to it. The first part is inhalation. Inhalation is purakam. Then the second part is exhaling. Exhaling is rechakam. Purakam, rechakam. Then holding it. The third part is holding kumbhaka. So purakam, that is inhaling, then holding it is kumbhakam, then exhaling is rechakam. So here Bhagavan says, some people perform puraka pranayama, some people perform rechaka pranayama, and some people perform kumbhaka pranayama. What does it mean is, puraka pranayama is where someone gives importance to inhaling and not as much to holding or releasing. So the inhalation is done slowly in that sense. Rechaka Pranāyāma is where one gives importance to exhalation and not as much to inhalation or holding the breath. The exhalation is done slowly, and that is difficult. Exhalation, doing it slowly, is very difficult. Then Kumbhaka Pranāyāma is where one gives importance to retaining the breath inside, holding the breath for a long time. Again, as I said, pranayama should be done with guidance. Otherwise, it can be counterproductive. Even before we come to pranayama, it is better to do just the observance of breathing. Sometimes it is not necessary for us to do pranayama. We will have to come and sit and then observe our breathing pattern. That itself is good enough. Prāṇāyāma, they say. Prāṇāyāma is where we observe our breath. So we observe a breath for some time, say 5 minutes or so. What will happen is, when we keep our focus on the breath, then the mind which is wandering will come back to us. So if we want to do, say for example, some kind of japam or dhyana, meditation, sometimes it is not necessary that we go into this pranayama and then come to do the japam or dhyana. It is enough if we do pranayāyama. We observe the mind for some time. By observing the mind or the breath for some time, by observing the breath for some time itself, the mind will come back to us and we can do our japa. Now we'll go into the sloka. Bhagavan says, apāne juhvati pranam. Bhagavan talks about pūraka pranayama here. Apāne juhvati pranam. Apāne means, here apāne means into the fire of inhalation. Inhalation. Juhvati. We saw juhvati already a few times. Juhvati is offer. Into the fire of inhalation offer pranam. Exhalation. So into the fire of inhalation, somebody offer exhalation. So here Bhagavan talks about pūraka pranayama. Importance is given for inhalation. Apana. This sloka can be slightly confusing because we have too many terms here. Pūrakam, kumbhakam, then we saw pranayikṣanam, then we saw apanam, then we say. So if we don't get it, it's okay. What we have to understand is, basically Bhagavan talks about pranayama as a sadhana. So we need not worry about what is being considered as ahavis, what is being considered as agni and all those things. This is just for understanding. If we are able to understand, it's fine. So here Bhagavan talks about agni. Here is apana, fire of inhalation, and then the havis, what is being offered, is prana, exhalation. So apane juhvati prana. The second part, Bhagavan is talking about rechaka pranayama. Rechaka pranayama is exhalation. Prāṇe pānam tata apare. Apare tata, apare means others, tata means and. So and others, apanam prāṇe. Inhalation into the exhalation. So inhalation into the fire of exhalation. So importance is given for inhalation. Agni is the prana, havis is apana, inhalation. Agni is exhalation, havis is inhalation. Then prana pana gati ruddhva. Prana pana gati ruddhva means ruddhva. Ruddhva means restraining, holding. Holding what? Prana apana gati. Gati means the movement. movement of what? Both inhalation and exhalation. Prana, apana, gati. So, restraining or holding the movement of both inhalation and exhalation. Some others offer them into the fire of retention. The fire of retention is not mentioned here. And Rudva, prana apane gati, that's what it says. Holding the breath of inhalation and exhalation. Now, whether it is holding forever, no, it's only temporary, not permanent. Prana pana gati rudva, we can add another sentence, Bhagavan has not added there, kumbhakam kurvanti, which means they perform kumbhaka pranayama. Again, as I said, it is not easy to hold breath also. To hold breath, one has to keep the body and mind still. That is why pranayama is a technique to discipline both the body and the mind. So Bhagavan continues Prāṇāyāma parayanaha. Parayanaha means committed to. Committed to what? Pranayama. So some people are committed to pranayama and therefore they offer exhalation into the fire of inhalation and inhalation into the fire of exhalation, or they do restraining the movements of both inhalation and exhalation. That is the meaning of this sloka. So Bhagavan has given pranayama as a sadhana. This is sloka number 29. Now we go to sloka number 30. Sloka number 30 is the, as I said, from sloka 25 to sloka 30, Bhagavan is giving the sadhanas here as yajñas. So this is the last sloka and the last yajña also. So far we had seen 11 yajñas. The 12th yajña is given in this sloka. So we will go into this sloka. Apare niyatāhāraha prāṇāpāneshu juhpati sarve pyete yajñavidaha yajñakshapita kalmeshaha. Apare niyatāhāraha prāṇāpāneshu juhpati sarve pyeti yajñavidaha yajñakshapita kalmashaha. So here Bhagavan is talking about Āhāra-Niyama yajñaha. Āhāra-Niyama yajñaha means discipline in eating, moderation in eating. Now this is considered very important. Niyamaha means discipline. Now, as I said, between 25 and 30, Bhagavan is giving the list of sadhanas. After which Bhagavan is going to say which sadhana can be used for what purpose, and which is the superior one, which we had already discussed before we started the sadhanas, but we will see it again because Bhagavan is going to call that out. So here, Āhāra-Niyama yajñaha, or we can say dieting, moderation in eating, discipline in food, whatever. So here Bhagavan says apare niyata āhāraha. Now before that, when we say Āhāra-Niyama yajñaha, one of the prominent food discipline that we follow in our culture is upavasa. We always say upavasam. I am taking upavasam today, or I am undergoing upavasam today. We say that. It could be for Ekadasi upavasam mostly, or some people do upavasam for Sashti. Some people do it for Chaturthi and all those things. Upavasa means what? Upa means near. Upa means near. Vasa means reside. That's why we say vasikaradu, anga vasikaran. That's actually reside. Upavasa means reside near. Now when we say reside near who? cannot be near food for sure, because we say upavasa means abstaining from food. So it has to be near something which is not food. Here it means near Ishvara. Ishvaram upavasaha. And why do we say that? Because if we eat fully, will we be able to remember Ishvara? Will we be able to think of Bhagavan? We don't. We cannot. Only if the stomach is a bit empty, we can think of Bhagavan. In Tamil we say Tanittiru, Vidittiru, Pasittiru. Tanittiru means learn to be in solitude. Vidittiru means be aware, stay alert. Pasittiru, literal meaning is to stay hungry. But actually we say remain hungry for knowledge, for truth. But even for that, why Pasittiru is being used for learning knowledge and truth? Because unless the stomach is a bit empty, knowledge will not go through. If the stomach is full, knowledge will not go through. Swamiji used to, always make a statement like this. Only if the Madhya Pradesh is empty, Madhya Pradesh meaning stomach, only if the Madhya Pradesh is empty, Uttar Pradesh will work. Uttar Pradesh meaning the brain. So, only if a Madhya Pradesh is a little bit empty, Uttar Pradesh will work. Why this Āhāra-Niyama yajña is important? Today, most of the diseases that we see are because of lack of discipline in food. So that's why what has happened is, because of all this lack of discipline, nature food has become a fad these days. It's a fashionable statement. Normal nature food. And sometimes they also have undergo some camps and so many things where they actually take us to a camp for a few days, make us starve for a few days, make us eat less than what we normally eat. There is these dietitians and all those people who actually make a lot of money by asking us to starve us. Basically, they don't ask us, make us sure that we don't eat much. And we eat proper, normal, natural food rather than processed food. And what we do? We go there, we pay money to starve in order to become healthy. We have a choice. We have a choice to remain healthy at home itself, but we don't. Why we don't? Because we do not have the mental strength. So, if we do not have the mental strength to do it on our own, does not matter. It is okay to go to another place, fast and get better. That is also a type of satsanga. Just for spiritual discipline, there is a satsanga. For food discipline, there is a satsanga also. There are some camps which will all offer you this. Anyway, Bhagavan talks about Āhāra-Niyama. Āhāra-Niyama, and according to our Yoga Shastra says at any point of time only 50% of the stomach has to be filled with food. When we are eating, we should only eat until half of the stomach. 25% have to be filled up with fluids, and 25% of the stomach has to be left empty. So solid, water and vayu. That's how it should be filled up with. That's different. Here we would say, have you eaten to your fill only? So Bhagavan says, follow Āhāra-Niyama. There is and why do we eat to our fill? Because we have a weakness in our tongue. The tongue is weak and we want to eat everything. It's not that the stomach is craving for most of the times. It is the tongue which craves. It's not that the stomach wants it to be filled up. It is the tongue which does not get satisfied. And until the time that the stomach says, no, I cannot take it any further, the tongue keeps asking for it. That's why in our culture we say, Jitam sarve jitam rate. Jite rate. Jitam sarve jite rate. It says, one can conquer everything if only the chariot is one who has conquered the chariot can conquer everything. Now the chariot symbolizes the body, now especially the sense organs, and within the sense organs it is mainly the tongue which is talked about. And the tongue is responsible for two things. One is of course taste and eating the food, and the second is speech. So if somebody is able to conquer or discipline the tongue, then he would have disciplined the entire body, he would have disciplined the entire thing around him also. He would be able to get more friends, much more discipline in his body would make him more healthy, more positive in his outlook and all those things. So, speech is also another thing. Words that do not disturb others. We'll have to learn to speak only words that do not disturb others. That's an aspect of self-discipline. Similarly, overindulging in food, craving for special food at all times through taste is also a distraction. It is a distraction for spiritual growth. Jitam sarve jite rataha. That's in Sanskrit. In Tamil, this similar thing is there. Navadanga nalu madangum, we say. Navadanga nalu madangum. If the tongue is not controlled, all other senses can be controlled. If tongue is controlled, all other senses can be controlled. So here Bhagavan says, apare niyatahāraha. Apare, others. Niyata āhāraha. Niyataha means regulated, disciplined. Āhāraha means food, diet. So regulated diet. People who follow regulated diet. When we say niyataha, discipline, what are the aspects that we need to bring in discipline? Three things. One, parinitam. Parinitam means quantity, eating in moderate quantity. That is one form of discipline. Two, it has to be hitam, it has to be healthy, which is good for both body and mind. It has to be sattvic food, it shouldn't be tamasic and rajasic food. Then amedhyam. Amedhyam means fresh food. It should not be stale food. It should be fresh food, not processed food. Let's put this way. Not stale food. So niyatahāhara means parinita, hita, amedhya ahara, or basically eat fresh food, healthy food in moderate quantity. Apare niyatahāraha prāṇāpaneshu juhvati. Prāṇāpaneshu, juhvati means offer. We have been saying that juhvati, offer. What? Prāṇan, the prāṇas. Where? Prāṇeshu, into the fire of prāṇas. So here the havis is the undisciplined prana or indisciplined prana, and then the disciplined prana is the agni. So why prana is being brought here when we are talking about food? Because moderation in food comes under pranamaya koshaha. Actually, who asks for food? Prana. That's why in Tamil we say pasi pranam bordu, we say. If my hunger, my prana is going away because I am so hungry. So it's part of the pranamaya kosha. So who asked for food? The pranamaya kosha. And therefore this pranayama and this Āhāra-Niyama, they go together. One helps the other. So others offer pranas into the fire of pranas, basically discipline them. Now to the second line, sarve pyete yajña vidaha. Sarve yete api yajña vidaha. So, sarve yete api means all those. All those people means what? All those who perform these 12 sadhanas given so far. Bhagavan calls them as yajña vidaha, as performers of yajña, performers of those sadhanas. All those people. Now Bhagavan is summarizing all the sadhanas now. He has given the 12 sadhana in the first line. The second line he is actually closing the section, so to speak. So closing the sadhanas. So sarve pyete yajña vidaha. People who follow all these performers of yajña, what happens to them? Yajña kshapita kalmishaha. Kalmashaha kshapita yajña. Kshapita means destroy. What did they destroy? Kalmashaha. Impurities, their papams, their sins get destroyed. What is a sin? What is a papa? What is considered to be a sin is anything that obstructs my self-knowledge. Anything that obstructs my spiritual growth is called as impurity, is called as kalmashaha. Gossip, it will impact my spiritual growth. Then it becomes kalmashaha. Anything that will, and that is a sin, that is an effect of my papa. So Bhagavan says, people who follow these sadhanas, they are able to destroy all their sins. They are able to remove their papa. In other words, they have been able to overcome those obstructions, those impurities. They will get purified by this yajña. So the mental purity, in other words, what happens when it says purity, we are talking about mental purity. Mental purity happens through these yajñas. We talk about chitta shuddhi. Chitta shuddhi happens through these sadhanas. So Bhagavan, with that closes this sloka. We will see the next sloka from the next class. There is no time for questions. Any questions, put it on the group. We will take it from there. So we'll see you in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.